record. All right, so we're recording here. So my name's Elder-Reyes. This is the Vet Blueprint, where I interview successful veterans to hopefully provide some guidance, some tips, some advice for young men and women as they're living the military. Today, I'm interviewing somebody that I served with in the Marine Corps, a very good friend of mine, Michael Budabin, correct? Michael, I say your last name?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool, Michael.
Budabin.
All right. I'm sorry, how do I say it?
Budabin, you had it right.
Okay, Budabin, perfect. All right. So just a little background on me and Michael. So we actually served in the Marine Corps together. I got out about a year after he did, but I'll let you kind of tell your story, Michael. So just to kind of begin with, just obviously where you're from, what branch of service you were in, how long did you do, what was your job, just those. If you kind of tell us a little bit about that first.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from New York City. I was born in Riverdale, which is a neighborhood in like the Northwest Bronx. I have to always say Riverdale because when people think they hear the Bronx, they always think a certain thing. But I grew up, middle-class family, a lot of brothers and sisters in New York. And when I graduated high school, that was 1999. And I enlisted pretty much right out of high school. I took the summer to sort of be an idiot and then went to Paris Island that September. So I did my 4 years. Let's see. So I was a 5811 originally. So hopefully you O3s don't still hold that kind of thing against me. That's been one of the nice things getting out is that the O3s are a lot nicer to me now. I see them at bars and stuff. But I was a 5811 military police officer. And then when I was in MP school, one day, this sergeant came in and said, anyone here interested in dogs? And so, I just raised my hand, and we got to try out for the MP school, and I got that. So I ended up being a 5812, which is a military working dog handler, which was a really big shift. Like my career path, and I think, a lot of things about my time in the service would have been really different if I hadn't done that. So I ended up going to San Antonio, which elongated my training a little bit, which is also helpful. So when I got to the fleet, I was a little bit more mature, a little bit older. And I went to Barstow, which is actually where me and Reyes met. Me and you, we met in Barstow. You were already there. I think you were logistics, right?
No, so I was IT, so
you were
S6.
Com, you were
yeah,
Com. Yeah.
Yep.
You were Com. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, my bad. So I was in Barstow and I was there for a couple of years, and then I put in to go overseas to Okinawa because 9/11 actually happened right in the middle of our time in. And when that happened, things really changed. For those of you that were in during that time, the Marine Corps was really, really different. It probably has never really gone back, even to this day. I think, when we first got in, it was everyone was always trying to sort of scare you into being nervous that you could be deployed. But there wasn't a lot of deployments going on other than the usual MU, rotations and stuff like that. And then after 9/11, you sort of never knew what was going to happen, and there was a lot of people getting deployed all the time. So I was in Barstow, which was not a deployable installation. So in Barstow, we weren't subject to deployment. And I wanted, I knew I wasn't planning on staying in more than 4 years at that time. So I wanted a chance to potentially deploy. So I put in papers to go to Oki, which I did. And I went to Oki for my last year in, and I ended up getting deployed for a few months to Saudi Arabia in April when the Iraq War started in April 2003. And I got out that September. A lot of people were getting stop loss at the time, so I got lucky. But that was pretty much my time in service. So it was 2 years in Barstow after I finished my training, and then 8 months in Okinawa, and then I got deployed for the last 4 months in Saudi.
Awesome. Okay, good, man. So once you got out the Marine Corps, kind of just walk me through, if you can, kind of maybe go back at that point. So were there any challenges that you had, man, or were there like anything that you kind of took a little adjusting to when you got out the Marine Corps? Because I mean, like I said, me and you served together. I remember you were pretty hardcore back then. I remember you went to the gym. You pretty much stayed in shape. Like you're a good Marine. I remember, man. So, but like, did you have any challenges when you first got out adjusting to the whole civilian life thing? Like,
yeah, man, definitely. I mean, look, I don't think anybody doesn't have that challenge, right? And I think the biggest. So if I had to look back, I never planned on staying more than 4 years, which was helpful to me because back then they were trying to keep people in. I'm not sure it's the same way now. I know at various times they've been sort of over enlisted and they weren't offering bonuses and whatever, but back then, and I'm sure if they're not offering bonuses now, they will be again at some point, right? It sort of ebbs and flows. But back then, when you were getting close, your captain or your lieutenant would come in and start talking to you and be like, what if we gave you 40,000, or maybe you should do this, officer program. So the biggest thing for me at first was just making the decision. And I said, no, I'm not going to stay in. I have other things that I'm interested in. And what it really was for me, I wanted to serve. I got a lot out of that. I met a lot of good people and had a lot of good experiences, but I was lonely. I was away from home. I'm a New Yorker. I was in a lot of smaller towns. That really wasn't something that I was as comfortable with. So I knew I wanted to go back home. So the first thing I would say that was really helpful for me and that really eased things was that, give or take 6 months before I got out, I knew for sure I wanted to get out. And I think it's helpful when you're EAS, when you come into those last 12 months, and your EAS is sort of coming up, think about that for you. Like, really give yourself some thought into your life path and what you're interested in doing, because it sneaks up on you. You're counting down days, in year number 2, but in your last year when you're a little more comfortable and you have friends and you're not, maybe not as miserable as you were when you're in training and you're, an E2 and whatever, it kind of comes and it's easy to waffle, and for me, the first thing was I planned that I was going to get out, and that allowed me to proceed. And what I did was, before I went on deployment, I gave a power of attorney to my father, so that he could apply to college for me on my behalf. So I had SAT scores from when I took that my last year of high school, and they were still good. They were good for 5 years back then. I don't know if they still are. But I gave my dad a power of attorney, wrote a college essay for him to submit to all the colleges, and he submitted that on my behalf because I knew for me, I wanted to go to school.
Wow.
And that way.
Hold up real quick. So you said before you got deployed, you gave power of attorney to your dad to apply to colleges?
Exactly.
And just let me back up for a minute, because right now you're a lawyer, right? You're an attorney? Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Wow. So I'll be honest with you. I didn't know you could do that. That is, wow. That's the first time I've heard that. Man, that's really, okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, and what it really was, it was thinking ahead for me, because
Wow.
This is the way I look at it. And this is if I had to give one piece of advice to everybody getting out is, maybe you take 2 weeks, maybe you take a month, a little like a true vacation, but don't get out with nothing to do, because the world, it's a little intimidating, right? When you're getting out and you've been in for 4 years and everyone is telling you where to take your next step, 5:30, okay, chow time, oh, you're getting deployed, here's your papers, you report here, they'll tell you what to do, right? The world's not that way. No one's going to tell you what to do. And that is intimidating to all of us. So for me, it was just really helpful that I had this landing spot. Like, when I got out, I was in orientation for college in like 7 days after I got back to New York.
Wow.
And that just gives you, it was easy for me. It's like, okay, now here's some rules to follow. Like, I got a class schedule, like it was easy. It was easy for me to come back into that. I've always been a little bit of an academic person. I don't know, not everybody's that way. It doesn't need to be college, but I don't think it's a good thing for vets to come home with no plan of where to put one foot in front of the other, right? Because then you end up, a few months later with, empty 30 packs of Bud Light, sitting in your corner being like, what happened to the last 6 months? And then he's 20 pounds heavier.
Right. Wow. That's awesome. You're the first. So like I said, I've done a few of these interviews already, and you're the first one that said that, yeah, they went ahead and give power of attorney specifically to apply for colleges, man. That's awesome. And you said 7 days after you left the military, you are already rocking and rolling in the college orientation.
Yeah, so my father and I were, emailing. So we had just started getting email accounts in the middle. I'm aging myself now. We had just started getting like USMC.mil accounts.
Blue mail.
Yeah, and so we stayed in touch. So I knew where I had gotten in and was making my decisions with him. Now, the scary thing was that they were stop lossing a lot of people, and I was on deployment. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to rotate back in time for the fall semester, it worked out really well. And I got lucky. I had enough vacation that when I got back to Okinawa, they just EAS'd me virtually right away, which I wouldn't have been able to start fall semester. I would have sort of been in between if I hadn't done that. But I was in Saudi through like mid-August, came back to Okinawa. There was like a 7-day turnaround. I got out and I got back to New York like August 18th or 19th, something like that. And my orientation was like on the 25th. And the freakiest thing was you come onto a college campus and there's just girls everywhere. You just happen to see guys in the Marine Corps, that was a big, even that alone, like
right.
Being around that many girls was intimidating to me. And I'm not even gonna lie, like that was just weird. It was like a totally different social vibe that you had to adjust to, But what really helped me was I had to register for classes, but once I did that, I could just show up, and it gave me something to do while I transitioned and got used to things. The other thing I did was, and for those who are going to college, I think this was a really helpful thing for me, is I got a job as an overnight security guard at an office building. And as a military guy, it was super easy to get. I also, I had a connection with someone that knew someone, as is often the case, I'll talk about that in a minute, connection. But I got a job as an overnight security guard. So number one, I had a little change in my pocket. But number two, I would do like 6 hours of studying for school while I was working, because I had a shift from like 11 to 7 a.m. And from 11 to like 5:36, there's nobody in the building. I have to like accept a milk delivery and, do a couple of walk-arounds, and that was it. So you make a little money, and I was able to study while I got paid, and it kept me focused on my books, because I really wasn't trained at that time to really focus on studying as much. But what I really found was, and what I would say to vets everywhere is, like, you don't realize how much of an advantage you have over other young people if you are 22, 23 years old coming out of time and service.
Yeah, hold on a minute, Michael. When you say an advantage, give me some examples of what you felt you had an advantage over other 22, 23-year-old guys right there. I mean, so when you say advantage, can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know about everybody else, like I said, I've always been an academic person in my brain, but when I was a junior and senior high school, I just wasn't a school guy at that time. I wasn't into it. There was other things I was sort of focused on, and I just wasn't into it. I didn't want to go to college when I was 18. I did just well enough to keep my parents off my back, basically. So when I knew I wanted to go to college, I thought, okay, it'll be fun to sort of be out of a physical environment every day with all these dudes, whatever. But I was nervous about the academics. But when I got there, what I realized is, when you're in the military, like, number one, you've been working every day of your life for 4 years, from 18 to 22. Most of these kids in college have not done that. So to them, getting up at 10:30 for a class, oh, that's like an early class. Why would you do that? To me, it was like, felt every day I'm getting up late, easily making it to class on time. Like, it's not hard to do that. When you're in the military, you're trained to be regimented in your style. And what you realize is college is much less regimented than what you've been doing. So if you can keep even like a moderate amount of that discipline you had, like really, like literally 15, 20%, college is going to be a breeze. Now, look, there may be someone in your class that's smarter than you. You may not be a straight A student, but the ability to get through a 4-year school when you were in the military already for 4 years, essentially all you need to do, show up, do the reading, do a couple of, papers you have to do, study for the test, but like, your discipline and work ethic, whether you know it or not, is significantly better than most of those other kids, because they just haven't done it. They haven't worked, They haven't worked. And it's like, how it is. You go out drinking in the military until 2 o'clock in the morning. Then you wake up, for PT at 6 o'clock in the morning. These kids they don't do that. They don't show up for class. They don't show up for class the next day after that.
Right.
And what I felt like it just wasn't a challenge from a lifestyle perspective. Some classes were challenging. I took Japanese. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take Japanese. I was just in Okinawa. It'll be good. That was terrible. It was so hard. That was the hardest class I ever took. I liked it, but I couldn't do it, man. I was like, this is messing up my GPA. I switched over to Spanish.
That's awesome. Okay. So then, are there any things that you would have done differently now, kind of looking back, as in regards? I mean, it sounds like you had a really good plan, because I could tell you the whole, making your father power of attorney, applying for class, the fact that you were in orientation, 7 days out of, after your EAS or when you left the military, super impressive, man. Like I said, I've done a few of these interviews. That's a really impressive plan, man, that you took. But was there anything you would have done a little bit different, kind of looking back, hindsight now?
Yeah, I think there's a few things I would have done different. So number one, I moved in with my brother right away when I got out, and I thought it would have been probably, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, right? But I think it would have been better if I transitioned a little bit in a more laid back home situation. So my parents were willing to have me, stay in the house that I grew up in, and that would have worked for me with my commute. My brother had an extra, room, and while it was a great time, and I don't regret it from like my experience with him, I felt a little overwhelmed socially coming back in that situation. It would have been a little better for me, I think, if I would have taken a little bit of time with my parents, and I was just sort of like, oh, I don't want to go live at home, mom and dad, whatever. But I think there was a little bit of pride there, and I think a lot of guys coming out now, they have, and for a long time now, I've had much more. I didn't have PTSD. I wasn't in a situation where I was getting shot at every day when I was overseas. So I know some people have much more serious, situations than what I'm talking about now. But it just coming back to the big city in and of itself felt a little overwhelming. And socially, I think it would have been healthier for me if I would have taken a little bit of some time with my folks, and just sort of a little family time, whatever have you. The other thing I would say is I thought I really knew my path. So while I think you got to plan ahead and give yourself an opportunity to walk into a situation where you're going to have something to do right away, whether it's a job or vocational school or a traditional 4-year school, I wish I'm a lawyer now. That was what I was sort of working towards. And I think in life, I've sort of come to a conclusion personally that things aren't what you think they're going to be, like you think a job is going to be doing X and Y and Z. And when you actually get in that job, instead of you doing A, B, and C, and you just don't know. And I think sometimes you can get yourself set, so much on a trajectory, and you got to be willing to take opportunities as they come. And I think that's a really important thing.
Like make adjustments.
Make adjustments.
Okay.
And I think so. I guess if I had to sort of say it, it's like big picture plan. Big picture pathways are important, but allow yourself the leeway mentally to adjust, and stay attuned to whether you like something or don't like something, because it's real. Like I'm a corporate lawyer now. It's a very good job, if I look and I've gotten very lucky and a lot of things in my life have gone very, very well for me. I don't know that it's my dream job, right? I don't know that it's like the thing that I was meant to do with my life. And I have no complaints about it whatsoever. But I think there were times when I look back on my path and I wasn't as flexible maybe as I could have been. And I think that would have been helpful for me. That's a little vague, I know. I guess it sort of coincides.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. So then, I know we said you're a lawyer. Kind of, can you just talk about like what it is exactly? What kind of lawyer you are? Because I know there's different types of lawyers out there. So you're a lawyer, but what kind of lawyer? What do you practice? All that good stuff. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm a corporate lawyer, and I do private M&A, they call it, which stands for mergers and acquisitions. So primarily, what I do is one business, relatively big businesses usually, wants to buy another business in the private sector. So we're not talking about primarily companies that are listed on the stock exchanges and stuff like that. But you'd be surprised. There's a lot of big businesses that we're all familiar with that are just privately owned, whether it be by individuals or what they call private equity firms, which are essentially pools of money that investors put in, and then these firms take that money and buy up other companies with it. And then once they buy them for their investors to get a return, they have to sell those companies.
Okay.
So I ask for buyers and sellers of those companies. And what it really means is I read a lot of contracts. And I negotiate a lot of contracts with other lawyers and business people. Until we get to a place where we don't have to argue about the words anymore. And then somebody pays somebody a lot of money for a business, and it gets transferred over. And that's pretty much what I do. So it's a lot of reading and advising on those contracts. And it's a good job, and I like it. I like being a lawyer. What I was saying earlier was just when I originally went to law school, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a district attorney. That's what I wanted to do. And when me and my wife got together, things shifted from a monetary perspective. I needed to plan accordingly. And so I shifted career paths a little bit. And I guess what I would say is I'm happy with it. And it's going well. But when I look back, there were just various sort of slight lefts and slight rights that I might have made. And I was so focused on being a lawyer. And at the time it was district attorney, right? But then that didn't work out. And I was totally bought in at that point because I had already taken out all these loans for law school, etc. So my options were somewhat limited at that particular time. And I don't regret that. It's turned out well. But when I look back in hindsight, I think if I had been more flexible, like for example, I might not ever have gone to law school, right? Because it was a big buy-in to make that decision.
Yep. Oh wow. Okay. So then I know you just mentioned being married. So obviously you're married, kids, all that good stuff.
Yes, I have a wife. I have 2 kids. I have a daughter who's 11. I have a son who's 8. I know you got a little guy too, right?
Yeah, 3.5-year-old. Yeah, little boy.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you think it would have been harder, like being married and like having to do all this, leaving the military? Like if you'd have got married while you're in your first 4 years, leaving then, as far as like married with the family, because it sounds like when you left, you were single, right? It was just you, correct?
Yes, it was just me. And yeah, so look, I mean, I know the topic sort of beat to death while we're in the military itself, and everyone sort of talks to you about it. I know guys that got married that are still with their spouses and seem very, very happy. If I'm honest, I'm a little bit guilty of like pretending I still know some of these guys. I'm really just watch the social media accounts and like, so who knows if some of them are actually happy or not? But they've been married for a long time and they seem happy to me. You know how that goes. I mean, some of us put forth a little fib from every now and then on social media, but they seem happy and that's been good. Others, are no longer with their spouses. Look, I think anytime that you're married, that's going to add a lot of complexity into your life. Hopefully a lot of the complexity is in a good way, and I would definitely say that for myself. But when you're married, and particularly when you have kids, your options are gonna shrink a little bit, because you got to be responsible for other people. So I do think I can imagine certainly that EASing with a spouse will be more complicated and probably require more preparation and sort of forward thinking, even than it would be if you were single. I don't think that really changes, when you're out, so like at this point in my life, pretty much every decision is, kids, wife, and I'm sort of at the bottom. There's a few times like when World Cup happens, or if the Mets are in the playoffs, not happening enough recently, but when the Mets are in the playoffs, I get a little bit of daddy number one for those few times. Like everyone leaves me alone so I can watch the game. But as a general matter,
happy wife, happy life, right? Happy wife, happy life, brother.
That's right, man. Unquestionably.
Awesome. So hey, let's just say I'm elder. I'm about to get out the military. I'm thinking about being a lawyer, or going to law somehow, because being a lawyer, man. Congrats, man. That's amazing, brother.
Thank you.
So
thank you.
What advice would you have to, for someone who's about to get out the military, looking at becoming a lawyer as a possible career choice, man? What advice would you give them? What would you recommend? And just after because you've been through a lot, right? Like you have first wanted to be a district attorney, and then now you do corporate law. Like, what advice would you give me if I came to you and said, "Hey, Michael, I'm thinking about becoming a lawyer. I get out in 6 months. What should I do to prepare myself to like kind of get off to a fast start? Once I get out the military."
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think this certainly applies to wanting to be a lawyer, but I think it applies to a whole slew of jobs. So what I would say is, in today's economy, there's a million jobs you can get that don't require a 4-year degree, but there's 5 million jobs that do require a 4-year degree.
Like, love it.
The way it skews, like you can be successful unquestionably, but without getting a degree. And I don't think college is for everybody. But what I would say is, if I was giving somebody advice getting out of the military, going to school should be the fallback position. And what I mean by that is, if like your old man runs a garage and you're great at, you've been a mechanic and that's what you want to do and you got a job, like that's great, or you love cars and you're capable of doing that, you have certifications, you want to look for that job, that's great. If you don't have something like that you're literally able to pursue, after your 2-4 weeks of break or whatever it is, I would say you should be looking to go to a school, because it's the first step to a large percentage of the jobs that can support a family that are out there, and it's not going to hurt to go to school, even for the jobs that don't. And it'll give you an opportunity to have that thing to do when you get out, that put one foot in front of the other, to have a sort of purpose, so you don't end up, like I said, drinking 30 packs of Bud Light, in your parents' garage, So what I would say is, if you want to be a lawyer, or you don't know what you want to do, frankly, look into going to school. It's fun. It gives you a quick sort of social opportunity, sort of so that you're not by yourself and sort of left alone in a hometown where other people maybe have started to move on to other things. And it sort of starts to set the table. Now, another thing I regret, frankly, is I didn't get the second piece of the GI Bill. The GI Bill, when they told me about this, and I would be lying if I said I knew exactly how it works now. I think education benefits have gotten better. But I was shocked at the GI Bill that I did have, at how easy it was, and how it was like you go see somebody and then bam, you get a check. I was like, wow, this is not a scam at all. Like, they're actually giving me money, like a lot of money. So those educational opportunities are really there for you, and the military wants you to use that stuff, right? And so does the whole world. So what I would say is, step number one, unless you have something that you really know that you want to do that doesn't require school, go back and go to school, community college, 4-year state school, private schools, whatever it is that you want. That you can make work. I would say try and avoid taking out loans if you can. That's not always possible, but with the military and the stuff that you have available to you, I think for a lot of guys now, a lot of schools you can go to, I don't know if they pay 100% or your GI Bill covers close to it, but it's that opportunity is there. So you need undergrad to go to law school. It's a requirement to get into law school is to have a 4-year degree. But almost no matter what you want to do, that's not going to be a bad place to start, in my opinion. If you're in school and you're going through it, and by the way, if you're at a 4-year school, there's going to be a lot of people looking at law school. It's a pretty common, job interest that people have when they're in 4-year schools, like for a lot of different reasons. And I do meet people now, sometimes veterans that I speak to, who tell me they're interested in going to law school. They're an undergraduate now, or they just graduated, and should they look into it? And what I tell them is, the thing about being a lawyer is that it is a job. It's a very good job if you get, a good opportunity and a good position. And the monetary opportunities are good. The work can be very, very interesting, but it's sort of a hard-working job, So no matter what kind of law you're going to be doing, you're going to have to be reading, writing, advising, and working. I don't really know a lot of lawyers that are successful at it, that work, 8 to 4 or whatever it is. It's not that kind of a gig. There's definitely a hustle to it. And there's a lot of jobs like that, but that's not for everybody. Some people want to have a job where their hours are going to be really known, where they're going to be able to plan their day around being off at 5:30. And what I say to people is, that being a lawyer is not that kind of a gig. So when you're an undergrad, I think you really got to keep your eyes open as to what's out there. And like I said, and this is what I was talking about before about being flexible, because if you want to be a lawyer, you have to go to undergrad. But during the course of undergrad, you may or may not still want to be a lawyer once you're, getting into your junior and senior year and having to make those calls. Once you take out those student loans to go to law school, and law school is expensive, now you're kind of bought in.
Right.
And that's what I was saying before. And I don't think that was a bad choice for me. I just didn't look at it as heavy a decision as I think I should have. You know what I mean? Like at that point, when I graduated, I could have done a million different things. I could have joined the police force. That was one thing I was thinking about doing. I like coaching youth sports. That was another thing. And I never gave those thoughts just enough time. I didn't realize that taking out that money at that time to take the loan I just didn't think about it deep enough. And I'm happy with where I ended up, but I feel like that decision was made just too quickly. Like I didn't allow myself other sort of thoughts. And I think you really do. I think you got to keep an open mind, if you want to be successful, because opportunities present themselves.
Awesome, man. So, I mean, man, that's some great info, brother. Anything else you would like to add, man? Well, I got, anything you like to say to anybody leaving the military now, or, maybe they're kind of just like, on the fence about leaving, or a little worried about leaving, or maybe they want to get out, but they're just like a little afraid. Because I can tell you, like I said, I did 4 years in re-enlisted once, and you knew me in the Marine Corps. I wasn't very gun-ho, so to speak, right? I'm more realistic out of like, man, I don't really have nothing to do, and I just don't want to, like, I'll be honest with you, I was a little afraid, man, to kind of like just step away from, to be honest with you, that paycheck every 2 weeks and making sure I was going to be fed and housed and stuff like that all the time. Anything you'd like to add to that, man, or just any kind of closing remarks or comments?
Yeah. A few things. So I think, first of all, don't sell yourself short, and I was saying this before, but the skills you gain, when you're in the service, like you're living in an adult world out there, and you're working with people in their 30s and their 40s. You're handling expensive equipment. You're dealing with important missions. That is not what your average 20, 21, 22-year-old kid is doing. So, there's a little bit of insecurity, I think, because you've been in the military doing this one particular thing, and you're going out into this world. Maybe it's college, maybe it's a job with people that haven't been doing that. And it's, in your head, it's intimidating. But the reality is you've gotten better training in life and better experience in life, than most people your age when you get out of the military.
Yep.
And it took me a little while to realize that, it's like, oh man, look at these kids, they seem like they know what they're doing. And nah, man, like they're kids still for the most part. And when you get out of the military, you're an adult. You may be an idiot adult sometimes. Like we all still do silly things when we're young, but you really have been through adult stuff. So try and remind yourself to have confidence. You really have had a valuable experience, valuable training. We all talk sort of smack about it while we're in, but the reality is you've gotten a lot more than most people your age. The second thing I would say is, keep moving. And this is what I was talking about, is try and find a way so that pretty close to when you get out, you're able to put one foot in front of the other doing something. Because I think you know, you want to have that inertia in life. You know, it's easy to get stuck. You know what I mean? And for me, it was really, really helpful just to have a place to go every day, something that I was working towards, a bit of a schedule. You know, okay, I know when midterms are, I know when finals are. You know, and have a plan, just something big picture to do. And the other thing I would say, and the last thing I would say is, you know, we're a big community out here. You know, there's veterans everywhere, and we help each other. You know, I meet up with people that are veterans. I talk to them. I'm happy to do that with anyone who's interested. If you want to talk, anyone who wants to talk to me about being a lawyer, being a corporate lawyer, I have friends that are lawyers that do all sorts of other stuff. It's a big field. Happy for people to reach out. Is it okay if I give my email address?
Absolutely. Yeah, please. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So my email is mikebudabin@yahoo.com. So that's MikeBudabin. So that's, you know, let me see if I remember. Mike, India, Kilo, Echo, Bravo, Uniform, Delta, Alpha, Bravo, India, November @yahoo.com. All right, I'm proud of myself.
Awesome. And what I'll do, Michael, if it's cool, when I put the description in for this video, I'll put your email in there too. That way, if someone wants to just send you, because I have your email as well. So yeah, you guys, you know, that's Michael. If some of you guys want to be lawyers or have questions about being a lawyer, or maybe need some guidance, even if it's something as small as kind of, you know, whatever he can help you out with, Michael's email will be in here. Send him an email. That's awesome that you're able to do that and help, man. Well, anything else, man, or was that anything else?
I think that's pretty much it. You know, reach out to people. You know, and that's what I was saying about the big community. You know, I say, try and find a thing to do, put one foot in front of the other, but sometimes you're gonna have a struggle. You know what that is. Like I said, it's intimidating. There are lots of us all over the place that have been through various paths to get wherever we are, and people will help you. You know, whether it be with advice or setting up a meeting with somebody, putting you in touch with this application for that. Like, you know, reach out. That's it.
I'm sorry. Hello. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. I think I lost you for a second. So you were saying set up networking, or it looks like we lost connection for a minute. You were saying networking.
I was just saying reach out. You know, don't be shy. You know, people are happy to talk. You know, other vets, friends of yours that were in, family members, people that weren't in. Like the world works this way. Like people, as a general matter, you know, don't sit there being like, I don't know what to do. You know, make a phone call and just be like, hey, you know, what did you do? That's exactly what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
I think it's really helpful to just talk to people. There's a million ideas out there, a million jobs out there. Like I said, you know, I'm a corporate lawyer now. That wasn't my initial plan, but I'm very, very happy in my life. I'm very happy in my job. Like, you know, not every job is for everybody, right? And that's what I was saying. You got to think about what's important for you, but be flexible about it. Have an open mind and reach out for advice. It'll help.
Yeah, man. I'll just tell you, Michael, man, I'm proud of you, brother. Like, but I will say this. When you're in the military, you know, you kind of look around and you see like people and like what their daily habits are and what they're doing, and yeah, man, just straight up, man. I always knew you was gonna be all right, man. Like I know you were always you just had your head on straight, man. Like I know I was back in the day, I was a little wild or whatnot, so people were kind of worried about where I was gonna end up, right? But Michael, man, straight up, and for those of you out there, you know, I kind of like, I knew, man. I knew you were very disciplined. You're at the gym and with your work ethic, always had uniform looking good to go. You were really committed. That's why it's funny when I saw on Facebook, like, you know, I think you went to Columbia. Is that correct? Yeah. When you went to Columbia and a corporate lawyer, I wasn't surprised, man. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like I mean, either I was going to see that or maybe point guard for the Knicks. I didn't know, you know, because I know you play a little ball, but honestly, man, seriously,
we both played a little ball.
Yeah, but you know, yeah. So just Michael could play some ball, y'all. So yeah, but I was when I saw Columbia, corporate law, and I was like, okay, well, but it wasn't like we were like, you know, like, oh wow, he really. And I was like, that makes sense, because you know, like I said, man, when you were in, you were really dedicated, and you could just tell, man. I mean, just some of the steps you took when you were about to get out were super cool, man. But hey, man, thank you so much for the time today. I know it's, you know, the holiday season. I know you want to spend time with your family, but definitely thank you, man, for spending some time with us. Like Michael said, I'm gonna put his email here in this video in the description here. If you guys have any questions, you know, about becoming a lawyer, you know, he definitely is open to, you know, kind of contacting him, and he'll definitely help you out.
Absolutely.
So yep, and then so yeah, thanks, Michael, for taking a couple of minutes here to, you know, to kind of chat with us about what's going on. And anything else? I know, anything else? Or?
Yeah, I was just The only other thing I would say is, it's not just being a lawyer. I'm here in New York. If you're in the New York area and you were a vet and you just got something you want to talk about, or you need to, I know other people around. There's a few different people around here. I'm in Midtown. Happy to meet just for a beer to talk about nothing at all, man. Like, it's important.
Awesome.
It's important that we all stay in touch.
And that's what I think
Thanks
it's all about.
And I appreciate it, Reyes. I appreciate your kind words, man. And it was always good to serve with you. You're always a great dude. I'm not surprised that you're doing well either, man. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to everybody here.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right, guys. So that was Michael Budabin, corporate lawyer in New York, doing well. Happy family, happy life, amazing kids. I'm gonna put his email here. Yeah, thank you once again, Michael. This is the Vet Blueprint, where I will be interviewing successful veterans every single day, and just hopefully leaving some good tips, some good advice, so that as men and women leave the military, they kind of have a path, or at least some good, some good following habits, man, or maybe some good things to do when they get out. Because like I said, even Michael, who's a corporate lawyer now, you heard him, he had some challenges. I had some challenges, and as you guys see more of these videos, if you're having challenges right now, or just having some roadblocks as you get out the military, you are not alone. There's tons of help out there, and hopefully this video helps point you in the right direction. So once again, Michael, thanks a lot, man.
Hey, thank you, Reyes. I really appreciate it, man. Also, I like the artwork in the background. I try to frame our video so you can see I have a little culture too. I'm like, look at Reyes over here with his culture.
Cool, brother. All right, thanks, Michael.
All right, man. I'll talk to you. Take care.
Yep.